The air inside the crashed starship smelled of burning metal and fear. Emergency lights flickered crimson against shattered panels, casting shadows that seemed to breathe. A faint hum pulsed through the wreckage, the dying heartbeat of an alien vessel stranded on an alien world. From behind a fractured energy shield, Soraya, daughter of the Valari envoy, stared out into the storm. Her 4 delicate pupils adjusted to the light, her bioluminescent veins flickering like fear itself. The planet below, Earth, the uncharted blue world of the primitives, was supposed to be a brief detour, a place to hide after the ambush. But now her crew was gone, and something was moving in the rain. The sensors had failed an hour ago, yet someone, had triggered the ship's proximity alarms. Heavy footsteps, uneven, wet. A bipedal silhouette moved through the storm with stubborn purpose. Soraya raised her plasma sidearm, though her hands trembled. Every instinct screamed predator. Then lightning cracked, and for the first time she saw him. He wasn't armored or glowing with energy. No claws, no mandibles. Just a soaked, wounded human. His clothes torn, one arm wrapped in blood-stained cloth. He should have looked weak, but there was something in his eyes. Something that made her breath catch. He was looking right at her, and in that glance her instincts, ancient, buried deep within her evolutionary memory, ignited. Soraya's kind were empaths. Their nervous systems evolved to detect emotional frequencies, to sense intention like scent. Yet what she felt from the human wasn't hatred, wasn't fear. It was a roaring, fierce will. The kind that refused to yield even when everything else demanded surrender. Her translator flickered. The human raised his hands, palms open. "Hey, I'm not here to hurt you." His voice, broken and raw, hit her like a shockwave. So rough, so alien, yet behind that sound was something she'd only read about in old Valari texts. Something they said humans had long forgotten. Mercy born from pain. Soraya stepped from behind the shattered console. Her violet aura dimmed cautiously. "You are human?" she asked, her accent distorted through static. He nodded. "Name's Daniel. Saw your ship fall from the ridge. Thought someone might need help." Her throat tightened. Help. Her people didn't use that word lightly. Among the Valari, assistance was a transaction, never kindness for its own sake. And here stood a creature, battered and bleeding, offering aid to an alien, pointing a weapon at him. Something inside her, something instinctive, shifted. She lowered her blaster. Daniel exhaled shakily, stepping closer. The ship groaned around them. "You've got injuries?" Not critical," she managed, though the truth was worse. Her left leg burned from plasma exposure. The wound pulsed faintly blue beneath the skin. He glanced down and without hesitation began tearing a strip from his shirt. "Hold still," she blinked. "You intend to touch me?" Daniel gave a tired smirk. "You can shoot me after if it goes bad." For a human, it was sarcasm. For her, it was courage. When his hand brushed her leg, Soraya's breath hitched. The contact sent 1,000 sparks racing through her neural patterns. Not from pain, but resonance. His warmth carried something she couldn't name. Something that her body, her instincts recognized. When he looked up, their eyes met again, and the storm outside seemed to fade. For the first time since the crash, Soraya wasn't afraid. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Inside, a human's heartbeat echoed against alien metal. Steady, defiant, alive, and somewhere deep within her chest, the daughter of the Valari envoy realized something terrifying. Her instincts had ignited not in fear, but in recognition, because whatever this human was, he wasn't just another species. He was something her kind had forgotten to believe, in something alive enough to change her. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. The valley where the ship had crashed turned into a sea of mud and shattered metal. Every night thunder rolled through the clouds like growling beasts. And every morning, Daniel went out to scavenge for food, fuel, or anything he could find that might help them survive. Soraya watched him from the edge of the wreck, her luminescent eyes following every movement. He was strange, fragile-looking, inefficient by Valari standards, and yet he kept moving. Even wounded, he carried himself with that same quiet stubbornness that had first drawn her attention. By the 3rd day, she'd stopped trying to understand it. Her translator had begun to sync better, picking up his speech patterns, his tone, but it wasn't language that fascinated her. It was his silence. Humans, she learned, said more through the things they didn't say, like how he never once asked who she really was, or how, when he caught her wincing from her healing leg, he didn't comment, just adjusted her makeshift seat closer to the heating coil. Valerie empathy made it impossible to ignore emotion, yet his emotional field was chaos, flashes of pain, fear, determination, and something else, something warm that burned like a small, stubborn star. One night, as the storm thinned into a mist, Soraya finally spoke. "Why do you help me?" Daniel paused, halfway through fixing a broken power cell. His face was streaked with grease and exhaustion. "Wouldn't you?" She tilted her head, her silver hair faintly glowing. "My people wouldn't. Survival is logical. You risked your life for me." "That is not logical," he gave a small laugh, dry, bitter. "Yeah, logic's not really our best feature." She frowned. "Then what is?" Daniel stared into the flickering light of the coil. His jaw clenched. "We don't stop. Even when it hurts. Even when it doesn't make sense. Maybe that's what makes us human." Soraya felt something shift again inside her, that same dangerous pull in her chest. Her instincts hummed like a song half-remembered. Her species had long suppressed primitive drives, empathy, bonding, connection, things considered distractions from higher reasoning. Yet the human's presence tore through those barriers like sunlight through fog. That night she couldn't sleep. Every sound outside the wreck, the wind, the crackle of fire, felt louder, sharper. And through it all she could sense him. His emotional field was steady now, focused, as if he were the calm center of the storm. She didn't understand why her heartbeat matched his. The next morning, she found him near the ridge staring at the horizon. The rain had finally stopped and the clouds were breaking apart, revealing a washed-out sunrise. "Your sky," she murmured. "It's chaotic," he smirked. "Yeah, that's what makes it beautiful." Something in that answer, that careless acceptance of imperfection, struck her harder than any philosophy lecture on her homeworld. The Valari built cities of flawless symmetry, erased every trace of unpredictability, but here was a creature who found beauty in the storm. "Daniel," she said softly, "your world is dangerous. You are fragile, reckless, and yet you survive. How?" He looked at her then, really looked. "Because we have to. Because someone has to make it through no matter what it costs." Her throat tightened. The words echoed through her nervous system like a pulse. That was it. The thing she'd been sensing since the first moment. It wasn't strength. It wasn't courage. It was refusal. The human refusal to die quietly. As he turned back to the sunrise, Soraya realized her instincts weren't warning her anymore. They were awakening, recognizing him not as threat, but as something meant to protect. For the first time in her life, Soraya, a daughter of logic, of distant stars, felt the irrational, primal warmth of faith, and it was aimed at a single wounded human standing beneath an alien dawn. The storm had passed, but peace never came. On the fourth morning, Soraya's sensors caught a faint transmission, fragmented, distorted by the planet's atmosphere. Yet the code was unmistakable. Valari encryption. Someone out there was searching, or hunting. Her pulse quickened. If the message came from her people, rescue might be near. But if it came from those who ambushed her ship, the coalition of Drax, then every heartbeat brought them closer to death. She hesitated before telling Daniel. Humans, she thought, feared what they didn't understand, but Daniel only nodded, tightening the straps of his makeshift pack. "Then we move," he said simply. "You are not afraid?" she asked. He shrugged. "Afraid, yeah, but fear's just fuel. Helps me run faster." That answer, raw and absurd, filled her with something dangerously close to admiration. They set out through the forested ravine, the wreck fading behind them. The air smelled of ozone and wet soil. Every now and then Soraya caught Daniel glancing at the sky, his instincts reading the terrain like a soldier. He moved differently now, more cautious, more aware. She realized he'd been a fighter once, maybe still was. His steps carried the ghost of discipline, his eyes the shadow of loss. Hours passed before the sound reached them, a low mechanical hum. Not thunder, not nature. A drone, Soraya froze. Her bioluminescent patterns dimmed instinctively. They found us, she whispered. Daniel grabbed her arm and pulled her into cover behind a fallen tree. The machine swept overhead, its red sensors slicing through mist. Soraya's heart pounded. It scans for Valeri biosignatures. If it detects me, he glanced at her, then at the mud below them. Then we change that. Without hesitation, he scooped a handful of earth and smeared it across her glowing veins. She gasped, startled by the sudden touch. Rough, human, warm. Her biolight flickered, muffled under the grime. The drone hovered closer. A single red beam passed just inches from them. Daniel's hand stayed on her shoulder, steady, grounding. For one terrifying minute, she thought her lungs would give her away. Then, as suddenly as it came, the drone veered off and disappeared into the valley. Silence. Only then did she realize how tightly she'd been gripping his wrist. Daniel exhaled slowly. Told you, fear's just fuel. She stared at him, speechless. No Valerie soldier would have done that. They would have left her as bait to survive another hour. But this human had shielded her without hesitation, even though he barely knew what she was. Something deep within her neural core vibrated, that ancient primal pattern she could no longer suppress. Every cell in her body recognized the signal. It wasn't the kind of instinct her species revered in the temples of logic. It was older, rawer, the instinct to protect him back. As they continued on, she noticed the change in herself. She began scanning ahead before he did. She started walking slightly in front of him, not because she led, but because something in her blood demanded that she face the danger first. That evening, they found shelter beneath a cliff. The remnants of a crashed drone smoldered nearby, proof that others were still hunting. Daniel sat beside the dying fire, staring into the embers. They're not giving up, he muttered. Whatever you are, you must be important. Soraya hesitated. I am the envoy's daughter. My death would fracture peace between 3 systems. He gave a humorless chuckle. So, no pressure, huh? She looked at him, her voice soft. You protect me, Daniel, now, but if they catch you, they will kill you. He met her gaze, eyes steady, fierce. Then they'll have to earn it. The way he said it, not bravado, not arrogance, just certainty, made her chest ache. That night, as he drifted to sleep beside the flickering coals, Soraya watched him in silence. Her instincts whispered again, the same 3 words repeating like a heartbeat in her mind. This one matters, and as the stars blinked through the clouds above, she realized she would do anything to keep that heartbeat alive. Night fell hard that day. The forest had turned to shadow. Every sound a whisper of danger. Daniel and Soraya had made camp beneath a ridge, the remains of a broken shuttle canopy shielding them from the drizzle. The fire between them flickered weakly, painting their faces in orange light. Soraya sat motionless, her eyes reflecting the flames like liquid glass. She could sense it now, the subtle pulse of approaching machines, the electric tension of a hunter's network spreading through the valley. The Dracs were closing in. Daniel tightened the straps on his knife belt. He'd salvaged a crude blade from the wreckage and a half-charged rifle. Not much, but he carried it like he had a chance. 3 signals, Soraya said quietly. Scouts. They will not engage until they triangulate. Daniel nodded. Then we move before they finish counting. He turned toward the slope, but Soraya grabbed his wrist. Her touch was urgent, her voice low and trembling. If you run with me, they will follow. If you stay, they might ignore you. Daniel met her gaze, rain dripping down his jaw. Yeah, not how I'm wired. And there it was again. That human defiance, reckless and shining even in the dark. Her instincts surged like wildfire. She could feel the echo of his heartbeat, sinking to hers through the air. Then the first explosion hit. A streak of red plasma tore through the trees, lighting the night like a flare. The shockwave threw Daniel to the ground. Another beam seared the ridge, sending debris crashing around them. Soraya reacted before thought could form. She raised her hand, and her body answered. A ring of violet light erupted around her, snapping outward like a living shield. The plasma bolts shattered against it, scattering in showers of blue sparks. Daniel stared, stunned, as her bioluminescent veins burned brighter than the fire. "Soraya," he shouted over the roar. "You said your energy core was unstable." "It is," she gasped, her voice trembling with strain. "But I will not let them take you." The world blurred. Energy poured from her palms, raw and uncontrolled. Each pulse of light sent pain lancing up her arms, but she didn't stop. Somewhere behind the storm of her power, she could hear Daniel's voice, calling her name, grounding her, reminding her that this madness had a reason. When the final drone dropped from the sky, its shell smoking and cracked, Soraya fell to her knees. The ground beneath her hissed with residual heat. Daniel was beside her in an instant, pulling her away from the burning wreck. Her breathing came in ragged bursts. Blue blood streaked her neck, glowing faintly in the darkness. Hey, look at me," he said, gripping her shoulders. "You're okay. You did it." She tried to smile, but her voice was faint. "I broke the covenant." He frowned. "What covenant?" "No Valerie may unleash core energy for another being." She met his eyes, tears of light gathering at the corners. "We are forbidden to bond." Daniel's chest tightened. "Then why?" "Because when I felt you fall," she whispered, "my body did not ask permission." The words struck him harder than any explosion. He didn't understand her physiology, her codes, her people. But he understood instinct. He understood doing something insane because someone's life suddenly mattered more than your own. He brushed mud from her cheek. "Then we'll deal with your covenant later." Above them, the sky flashed again, but this time, not lightning. A ship, sleek, predatory, descending through the clouds. Soraya's eyes widened. "That is not Valari rescue craft. That is Drax's command." Daniel stood, weapon in hand. "Then we run." She reached for his arm, stopping him. "If we run, they will track the energy residue. The only chance is to hide me." He stared at her. "Not happening." Her voice broke. "Daniel, please." A shriek of engines drowned out the rest, and as the ground trembled beneath their feet, Soraya realized her instincts weren't just ignited anymore. They were consuming her, body, logic, and soul, all for the fragile human who refused to abandon her. The valley shook as the Drax command ship descended, its engines thundering through the night like an angry god's roar. Trees bent beneath. The force and ash rained down from the last of the burning drones. Daniel helped Soraya to her feet. She was trembling, her bioluminescence flickering erratically, a warning sign he couldn't interpret but instinctively feared. "You can't fight that thing," she whispered. "Their armor is built to survive plasma storms. One strike would kill me," he finished grimly. "Yeah, got it." He adjusted the grip on his scavenged rifle, jaw tight. "Still not running." Her hand caught his arm. "Why?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. The wind howled between them, carrying the metallic taste of rain and smoke. "Because someone once did the same for me," he said finally. "Didn't make it out. I don't plan on letting history repeat." Soraya stared at him, not with pity, not with confusion, but with something raw and reverent. The bond she felt humming through her veins pulsed harder, resonating with his words. Her instincts, the same biological warning systems that once told her who to flee or trust, now sang in unison with him. She couldn't tell if this was evolution or collapse. The ground split open nearby, and 3 Drax enforcers emerged from the smoke. Their silhouettes were monstrous, plated with black armor that pulsed like living steel. One of them barked something in guttural Draxic. "Surrender the Valari. The human will die swiftly." Daniel stepped in front of her. "You'll have to shoot through me first." The Drax raised their cannons. Soraya's voice trembled. "Daniel, move." He didn't. The first bolt hit the ground near his feet, vaporizing mud. The second grazed his shoulder. He stumbled, but didn't fall. The third would have ended him, if Soraya hadn't screamed. Her cry wasn't human. It was a sound that split the air and space between atoms. A surge of violet light erupted from her chest, flaring outward in concentric rings. The Dracs staggered, shields shorting out. Their weapons melted in their hands. Daniel shielded his eyes as the energy ripped through the valley. The earth glowed blue beneath them, trees turning to glass. The air vibrated, alive, furious, divine. When the light faded, Soraya was on the ground, motionless. The Dracs were gone, vaporized, their armor scattered as molten fragments. Daniel dropped beside her, heart pounding. "Soraya, hey, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open, faintly glowing. "I broke too many laws." "You broke them," he said, voice shaking. "That's all that matters." She smiled weakly. "You're a strange creature, Daniel. Your kind burns without restraint. You should not exist, and yet—" Her hand brushed his chest, over his heart. "You make the universe remember it's still alive." Above them, the Drax command ship adjusted course, scanning for the energy flare. The blast had given away their location. Soraya pushed herself up, trembling. "They will lock on us. The next strike will destroy everything within 2 kilometers. Daniel looked at the ridge. "If we can reach the caves, maybe—" She caught his wrist. "You will go. I will stay." His expression hardened. "Not a chance." "Daniel, listen." Her voice broke. "If I channel the rest of my core into the ground, I can disrupt their targeting systems. But I will not survive it." He stared at her, disbelief giving way to fury. "You think I'd let you die to save me?" Tears, or the Valari equivalent of them, shimmered at the edges of her eyes. "This is not death. It is instinct." He cupped her face with shaking hands. "Then you're not the only one with instincts, Soraya." Before she could speak, he kissed her forehead, a gesture as ancient as humanity itself, then turned toward the ridge. "We do this together, or not at all." The sky above began to glow red. The Drax ship was charging its main cannon. And somewhere deep in her neural core, Soraya realized something she couldn't unfeel. His defiance was rewriting her biology. The universe had spent millennia teaching her people to suppress emotion. But one glance at a human had undone all of it. The sky was burning. The Drax command ship loomed overhead like a floating scar, vast, black, and humming with deadly energy. The ground beneath it trembled, cracking under the pressure waves of its cannon systems charging for a strike. Every instinct screamed at Daniel to run, but he didn't. He stood in the open, rifle raised, facing a machine that could level mountains. His breath came slow, steady. He could taste the copper tang of ozone in the air. Behind him, Soraya struggled to stand, her body dimming with every pulse from her failing core. "Daniel," she rasped, "you cannot fight the sky." He didn't look back. "Watch me." A streak of crimson light tore through the clouds, the Drax's primary beam charging sequence. The hum was deafening. The world around them seemed to pause, waiting for the end. Then Daniel ran. Not away, but toward the ridge, toward the ship. The mud slipped beneath his boots, the heat searing his skin. He had no plan, no weapon strong enough to matter. Only the stubborn human instinct to do something, anything. Soraya's voice cracked through the calm. "Stop, you will die for nothing." But he didn't stop, because she had already died 1,000 quiet deaths before him. Deaths of obedience, silence, and reason. If she could defy her people's laws for him, then he could defy the sky for her. He reached the wreck of a fallen drone, sparks still flickering from its core. His mind raced. If he could overload it, chain the detonation, maybe he could make the Drax blink long enough for Soraya to do whatever she was planning. He pried open the panel with his knife, fingers blistering from the heat. The drone's energy cell glowed white-hot. Behind him, Soraya stumbled forward, her instincts screaming louder than her pain. The bond between them was no longer metaphorical. Her nervous system was linked to his through the energy she'd unleashed earlier. Every heartbeat, every surge of adrenaline she could feel, and what she felt now was madness laced with purpose. "Daniel, stop," she begged, dragging herself closer. You will ignite the valley. Then make it worth it. He shouted back. Lightning split the sky. The Drax cannon flared, a burning sun descending toward them. In that split second, Daniel slammed his knife into the energy core and twisted. The drone exploded in a sphere of light. The blast roared upward, colliding with the incoming beam. For a heartbeat, heaven and earth met in fire. The shockwave flung Daniel backward. He hit the ground hard, the world going white. Soraya screamed his name. The pain hit her like a spear, because his agony bled directly into her mind. Without thinking, she reached inside herself, to the very heart of her core. She had seconds before overload, seconds to choose. Her people taught that the Valeri core was sacred, a fusion of logic and light never to be broken. But her instincts, those ancient, disobedient whispers, told her something else. Break it for him. She pressed her palm against the ground. The symbols along her veins flared bright. Energy poured out, pure and violet, racing through the soil like veins of lightning. The explosion's heat curved away, shielded by her power. And Daniel breathed. The beam faded. The sky went dark again, smoke and ash drifting like snow. The Drax ship's cannon flickered, damaged by the feedback. Its engine screamed as it began to lose altitude, spiraling away toward the horizon. When the silence finally came, Soraya collapsed beside him. Her light was fading fast, her core nearly extinguished. Daniel blinked through the haze, vision swimming. You stopped it, her hand found his. No, she whispered. We stopped it. He gripped her trembling fingers. You're not dying here. You hear me? She smiled faintly.
My instincts were not wrong. Her words were a whisper, but the emotion behind them roared through him. Warmth, gratitude, faith. Humans, she breathed, her voice barely audible.
You burn the stars just by existing, and with that, her eyes closed. Daniel's tears mixed with the rain as he held her against him, whispering her name into the smoke-filled air. Above, the crippled Drax ship burned across the sky like a dying comet, a scar carved by a single human's defiance. The world was silent. Only the whisper of rain remained, falling softly over the scorched valley. Smoke rose from shattered trees, curling skyward like ghosts trying to find home. Daniel knelt in the mud, holding Soraya's lifeless form. Her bioluminescent veins had dimmed completely. The brilliant glow that once pulsed with emotion now just faint traces beneath her skin. She felt impossibly light in his arms, like she was already fading into air. He pressed his forehead to hers. You did it, he whispered. You stopped them, but the words felt hollow. Victory meant nothing if she wasn't there to see it. The Drax ship had fallen miles away, a burning ruin against the horizon. The planet's crust still shuddered from the impact, but there would be no more attacks. The enemy had lost their command, and yet, as the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, Daniel couldn't lift his eyes from the one who made it possible. He didn't notice the faint shimmer crawling through the mud, tiny threads of violet light weaving outward from her hand. Soraya's body wasn't dead, not entirely. The Valeri core didn't extinguish easily. It transferred. It sought a host strong enough to carry its resonance, and it had chosen him. The first pulse hit his chest like a hammer. He gasped, clutching at his ribs as light poured through his vein, and bright, searing, alive. Soraya's memories flooded him in an instant. The Valeri temples, the lessons of restraint, the first time she saw the stars as a child. And beneath all of it, one emotion burned stronger than the rest: trust. Her voice, faint and echoing, whispered through his mind. If instinct is truth, then you are mine. The words shattered something inside him, not in pain, but revelation. Her essence, her empathy, her fire, all of it had fused into him, anchored by the bond they had forged in those final moments. He wasn't just feeling her memory. He was her continuation. The light subsided slowly, leaving a faint violet glow in his heartbeat. The pain eased. He looked down. Her body was still there, peaceful but empty. The energy that made her Soraya now lived in him. Daniel rose shakily to his feet. The dawn stretched over the valley, painting the world in gold and silver. His reflection in a puddle startled him. His eyes now shimmered faintly with her color. He looked toward the wreck of the Drax ship and clenched his fists. You'll be remembered, he said softly. I'll make sure of it. For days he walked, across mountains, rivers, ruins of alien machines. The bond inside him guided every step, whispering directions he shouldn't have known. He felt her thoughts like echoes, her instincts warning him when danger neared. When rescue finally came, a human patrol craft searching for the crash site, they found him standing on a ridge, staring at the stars. The soldiers rushed toward him, weapons raised, shouting his name. But Daniel didn't move until he was certain they saw what he saw. The sunrise reflected in the wet ground, glowing faintly violet. They asked how he survived. He didn't know how to explain it. How do you describe a soul that refused to die alone? So he told them only this. She saved me. An alien. Her name was Soraya. She believed in us. The story spread faster than light. Across the fleet, across the colonies, the tale of the human who stood against the sky and the alien who gave her life for him became a legend. A new chapter in the ever-growing human mythos. But the part no one knew was this. Sometimes, when Daniel looked up at the stars, he still heard her voice. Your kind burns too bright to fear the dark. And every night, as he closed his eyes beneath alien skies, the faint hum of her core pulsed in rhythm with his heart. Proof that even across species, across death itself, something ancient and true could still survive. Instinct, faith, love without a name. The human and the alien had both defied what they were made for. And because of that, the universe would never be the same again.